splitting those seeds, because gloves are soon to be popping.
He makes a headlong dive and makes the catch.
And bats are going to get cracking.
Blast one! Deep right field! Gone!
Welcome to KNBR's Giants Warm-Up.
Way back there! Goodbye!
On the sports leader.
The pitch. He swings and he hits a high drive into left. Going back, Ramos. Now on the warning track. He squares up and just a few feet in front of the wall. He makes the catch. Ball game over. And as the Hall of Fame broadcaster Bob Prince used to say in a game that ended like that, he'd say, had him all the way.
We are back. Welcome into the very first Giants warm-up of the 2025 regular season. I am your host, Kerry Crowley, and it is a pleasure to get you set for Giants baseball this afternoon and throughout this 2025 season. I'm thrilled to be joining you as the San Francisco Giants 1-0 take on the Cincinnati Reds this afternoon, late afternoon, out at Great American Ballpark, 1:10 the first pitch Pacific time. It's Justin Verlander on the hill for your Giants, and Nick Lodolo taking the mound for Terry Francona and the Cincinnati Reds. So much to get into over the next 2+ hours as we get you set for Giants baseball. Our pregame show coming your way right around 12:40 Pacific time today, and a lot to discuss here as we dive into a very successful opening day for the San Francisco Giants, a Buster Posey era that began with a dramatic ninth-inning victory. Wilmer Flores, Posey's former teammate, bashing the 3-run home run off of Ian Gibaut, the Cincinnati Reds' right-handed reliever. Can't forget Patrick Bailey with a game-tying single with 2 outs in the ninth inning. And also don't want to forget the 2-run home run that Elliot Ramos hit earlier in the game and the 2 key walks that sparked rallies from Jung-Hoo Lee, who, of course, the Giants will count on in center field all season long. So very much excited to get into today's show. But before we do that, kind of going to give you a structure for the regular season for Giants baseball on KNBR. As you hear, we're now just about 3 hours from first pitch at Great American Ballpark. And what you'll hear this season are 2-hour pregame shows called Giants Warm-Up. We did 1-hour shows called Giants Warm-Up last year. I'll be your host throughout the course of the regular season. We're extending it out this year. And then you'll hear the hour-long pregame show. You'll really get into the nitty-gritty with, Krukow on baseball and Dave Fleming around the park and all the different features that you love and you've heard for years on KNBR that are part of our hour-long pregame show every single night. I'll hang around for the first half hour, help facilitate some conversations with Giants broadcasters, John Miller, Dwayne Kuiper, Mike Krukow, the whole gang, Dave Fleming, FP Santangelo, Joe Rizzo, Hunter Pence, Javi Lopez. The list goes on. The Giants have a litany of tremendous broadcasters, and you will hear from them throughout the year on our KNBR pregame shows. And then, of course, we've got our award-winning Diamond Notes back for another season. And then after each Giants game on the weekends, you'll be able to hear extra innings with Bill Lasky. He's back for another year. Bill does such an amazing job with the shows on Saturday and Sunday afternoons. Great post-game shows. He's got some tremendous guests lined up for today and tomorrow already as the Giants are taking on the Cincinnati Reds. And look, if you're just tuning in, we did this all spring as well. We did Giants warm-up, we did extra innings, and also on Sunday mornings, you will still hear Marty Lurie with Talkin' Baseball. Tomorrow morning, you want to hear Marty, tune in at 7 a.m. as he'll have his usual crew. Bruce Jenkins, Ron Wotus, the list of Marty's guests goes on, and you'll hear from all of them throughout the course of the regular season. One thing that we really want to integrate into our broadcast this year, into our Giants warm-up shows, are phone calls and texts from you, the loyal listeners. So at some point during today's show, I'll put out the number 415-808-KNBR. We'll hear from you. We'll hear from your thoughts on Thursday's performance against the Reds. We'll hear your analysis of the opening day roster that the Giants set. Obviously very heavy on right-handers on the position player side, very heavy on right-handers in the bullpen. We'll hear your thoughts on the comeback as well, with Jung-Hoo Lee sparking things, Patrick Bailey and Wilmer Flores delivering the key hits, and then Ryan Walker able to hold on, but not without a little bit of torture in the ninth inning. So let's set the stage for today's ball game as Justin Verlander making his debut in a San Francisco Giants uniform. And I think this is a really exciting moment for a lot of folks in the Giants organization, and there's a number of reasons why. The very first is Buster Posey took over as president of baseball operations in the offseason, and he had a clear mission for this team. He wanted to give the Giants an identity. He wanted them to play fundamentally sound baseball. He wanted them to focus on the little things, doing those right, being a really detail-oriented club. He wanted the everyday position players to be everyday players, take away some of the platoons. He wanted starters in the rotation who could go deep into a ball game, and he wanted relievers who knew their role and would be lights out. He wanted this to be a little bit more traditional of a setup in terms of baseball than we've seen the last few years with Farhan Zaidi as the president of baseball operations, particularly in 22, 23, and 24, as the Giants lost their way a bit. There were more platoons, there was less certainty in the rotation and the bullpen, and the 24th, 25th, and 26th players on the roster were often swapped out for guys down at AAA Sacramento, and there will still be that to a certain degree this year. It's just one of the functions of having a modern baseball roster. You have to dig into your depth at AAA. The more that you can use those guys on your 40-man roster, the fresher that your players will be. But one of the very first reasons that Buster Posey wanted to sign Justin Verlander is throughout his 19-year Major League career. His 20th season starts today in a Giants uniform. He has been someone who posts every fifth day. And yes, last season he dealt with injuries, but that was the rare year for Justin Verlander when he's dealt with injuries. Of course, he did so in 2017 as well with the Houston Astros, but came back the following season and was an all-star. A 2.52 ERA at age 35, a 2.58 ERA at age 36 when he won his second career Cy Young Award. And how about this? 2022 with the Houston Astros, Justin Verlander goes out there over the course of 28 starts, throws 175 innings to the tune of a 1.75 ERA. Led the majors with 18 wins, and he takes the mound today in Cincinnati looking for victory number 263. A really special opportunity for Justin Verlander to continue building his Hall of Fame resume in San Francisco. And look, the guy could go one start, get hurt, and not make a start for the rest of the season. He could retire after that, and he would still be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the very best to do it in the game today. But the Giants are thrilled because as Justin Verlander joins this team, it's with a goal. It's with a goal of regaining that Cy Young caliber form, pushing the Giants toward the postseason, and helping this rotation win games in October. And yes, it might seem far-fetched for a 42-year-old pitcher coming off of a 5.48 ERA in a season where he was riddled with injuries, dealt with the neck issue, dealt with some back stuff, dealt with a variety of lingering issues. It might seem ridiculous to think that Justin Verlander could be the key to the San Francisco Giants getting back to the postseason and winning a postseason series. But that's just if you look at things through the lens of last season, and that's just if you look at things through the lens of what ordinary baseball players look like at 42 years old. Justin Verlander, throughout his career, has demonstrated he is no ordinary talent. He's someone who at age 39 won a Cy Young Award with the 1.75 ERA, came back the following season with the Houston Astros, posted a 3.22 ERA. In 2023, he posted a 3.22 ERA with 16 starts in New York before, of course, he was traded from the Mets to the Astros, back to the Houston organization. And last season didn't go as planned. The Astros were ready to move on, but the Giants were ready to swoop in there and get excited about having Justin Verlander pitch out of this rotation. He will not only start today in Cincinnati against the Reds, he will also start the home opener next Friday at Oracle Park against the Seattle Mariners. Very exciting opportunity for the Giants to take on the Mariners, who had a thrilling opening night up at T-Mobile Park against the Athletics as well. So we'll touch on that later on in the show. We'll go around the league. We'll do some of our favorite opening day moments, some of the best performances you saw on opening day on Thursday, and we'll do the anatomy of the comeback. We'll get into every reason the Giants won Thursday's game and how they formed that comeback against the Cincinnati Reds. But I want to continue talking about Justin Verlander as he joins the San Francisco Giants and makes his team debut today. This is someone who set the tone with a really strong swing, and it was not a great outing his last time out in Scottsdale. I was there last Saturday when he took on the Arizona Diamondbacks. The velocity started to tick down a little bit in his sixth inning of work. He started to give up some more hits against the Diamondbacks, but I also think that this is someone who, even at his age, 42, can go out there and give you 5 to 6 strong innings, can understand how to pitch better than anyone else on this Giants roster, and can use certain pitches on a start-to-start basis that, maybe other lesser pitchers wouldn't be able to navigate on days when they don't have their premier stuff. So what do I mean by that? Justin Verlander last season was throwing the four-seamer, the curveball, the slider, the changeup, and the sinker. This is someone who in his major league career has been mostly a 4-pitch guy. He's worked in the sinker from time to time, but it's never been his bread and butter. The 4-seamer has always been his best offering. Last year, he allowed hitters to hit 297 off that pitch with a 497 slugging percentage. That's not good. But the issue for Justin Verlander last year was the curveball, another reliable pitch, oftentimes his out pitch throughout his major league career. It was terrible. In at-bats that ended with Verlander throwing a curveball, he gave up 3 home runs, 12 singles, 2 doubles, allowed a batting average of 340 and a slugging percentage of 560. Now let's put that into context. When was the last time that Justin Verlander won a Cy Young Award? 2022 at age 39 with the Houston Astros. That year, he threw the fastball about the same amount as he did last season. He throws the fastball about every other pitch, 4-seamer about 50% of the time. That year, hitters hit 194 with a 285 slug against the fastball. They did almost no damage against that pitch. The real key, though, to Justin Verlander's Cy Young Award-winning season was the curveball. He only threw it 20% of the time. The slider is the secondary offering he goes to more often, but the curveball was downright lethal. Opponents hit 158 with a 267 slug against that curveball. The slider generated 90 strikeouts for him in the Cy Young campaign in 2022, but it was the curveball that generated 38 strikeouts for him, and opponents hit 30 points worse against the curve than they did the slider. This is someone who, at his peak, is a true 4-pitch guy, and that can be a really effective weapon for you on a day when, hey, maybe your slider's not breaking how you anticipate it should, so you go to the curveball more. On a certain day, maybe the curveball doesn't have as much vertical break to it, so you go to the slider more. Conditions are different in all 30 ballparks in Major League Baseball. It's one of the reasons that it's very hard to get by as a 2-pitch starter in the league. We saw the Giants do this with Kevin Gausman. He was really one of the rare 2-pitch guys who succeeded out of the rotation. He was fastball splitter. And if the splitter wasn't working, it wasn't going to be a good day for Kevin Gausman. But it was also an invitation for the Giants to look at other pitchers, develop pitchers in their farm system who could be more than just a 2-pitch guy, be more than just a 3-pitch guy. It's why you've seen Logan Webb evolve from last season throwing just the sinker, the slider, and the changeup to on opening day coming out and throwing a cutter in on the hands of left-handed hitters. Because the more you look like Justin Verlander, the more options you have in your back pocket, the more effective you can be at the major league level. It's one of the reasons that Landon Roop is pitching out of the rotation right now. Last year, it was the curveball. That was the dominant offering. He'd go with the fastball, and that was okay. This year, he shows up in spring training. He's throwing a cutter, a curveball, and a changeup. He's landing all 3 of those pitches for strikes. So he's got the one elite offering in the curveball that he had last year. But the cutter, that's a new weapon for him, much like it is for Logan Webb. Other pitchers in the Giants rotation, Hayden Birdsong, the reason that he has more upside at this moment in time than Kyle Harrison does is because Birdsong is really a true 4-pitch guy. You know, you look at Harrison, who's down at AAA to start the season, and you see someone who's got the great fastball. He's got kind of a breaking ball, slider, curveball. Doesn't really know what to call it. The changeup that he can throw and get some ground balls with, but he really needs to hone in on those secondary offerings. Whereas Hayden Birdsong, I mean, last year he threw the 4-seamer 45% of the time, and then it was curveball, changeup, slider 18% of the time with each of those pitches. He kept hitters off balance much in the same way that throughout his major league career, Justin Verlander has always been able to keep hitters off balance. Because yes, you know the fastball is coming about 50% of the time. But when you go to that curveball, when you go to that slider, when you go to that changeup, he can spot those pitches effectively. They're commandable, and they're pitches that he can go to in any count to throw a strike. It's what you saw from Hayden Birdsong at his best last season. It's what you saw from Hayden Birdsong throughout spring training this year. And if not for that nail injury, I think we may have seen him out of this opening day rotation instead of Landon Roop. The Giants have Birdsong down in their bullpen. They wanted to reward him on the opening day roster. And ultimately, I'm okay with that decision because they've got someone who is true 4-pitch weapon down there, and he can come out and give you multiple innings at a time. The Giants don't want to use him today. They certainly don't want to use him tomorrow either in Cincinnati when Robbie Ray takes the hill. By the way, Robbie Ray, another pitcher who's evolved with adding the changeup to his arsenal this offseason and using it during spring training. But I think the ultimate point is this. Justin Verlander joins this Giants team with a track record throughout his major league career of success, of wins, and of using different pitches in every possible count to keep hitters off balance and to set the tone for his outings. And I think that you'll see that rub off on Giants pitchers. You've seen it rub off on Giants pitchers. Logan Webb debuting that cutter. Landon Roop bringing in the cutter. Robbie Ray using the changeup. Everyone wants to be more like Justin Verlander. who's always been a true 4-pitch guy and who needs to harness all 4 of those pitches to have success at age 42 in his 20th Major League season. So what does year 20 have in store for Verlander? We will find out very soon as he takes the hill this afternoon against the Cincinnati Reds. Giants trying to make it 2-0, trying to win this series outright. The first series of the regular season, the first series of the Buster Posey era. When we come back, the anatomy of the comeback, looking back at Thursday's dramatic 9th inning and how the San Francisco Giants managed to storm back against the Cincinnati Reds, how after a quiet afternoon against Hunter Green and the early relievers they saw, and Scott Barlow, Emilio Pagan, and Tony Santillan, they managed to come back against Ian Jabot. Jung-Hoo Lee playing a key role. Elliot Ramos, of course, early in the game, the home run. We talked about Patrick Bailey and Wilmer Flores. We will get into all of that on the other side. And, of course, later on this afternoon, we will take your phone calls as well, leading into first pitch today at 1:10. Pregame show will really start about 12:10, and then we'll get into the full pregame around 12:40. But right now, we're extended pregame. We're Giants warm-up, and we're hanging with you for the next few hours here on KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader.
Giants fans, first pitch isn't too far away as KNBR's Giants warm-up continues on the Sports Leader.
We are back here on KNBR. Kerry Crowley hanging out with you. The San Francisco Giants are 1-0, and fans are excited for good reason. I think that everyone saw Thursday's 6-4 win over the Cincinnati Reds potentially as a sign of what's to come this season. And as I've said throughout the past few days, you can't read too much into early season results. You can't hang your hat on a good April, a good May. You can't look at what the Giants accomplished down in Scottsdale in spring training as a sign that everything will go right for this team. But what has transpired since Buster Posey took over as the president of baseball operations has been positive. There's been a clear direction set for the organization. There's been a clear mission statement for the organization. They're going to play good defense. They're going to run the bases well. They're going to play sound, fundamental baseball. They're going to get timely hits. They're going to pitch well, especially out of the bullpen. And they're going to win games as a result of playing that way as much as humanly possible. And I think one of the main characteristics that Buster Posey has kind of instilled in this team by putting the imprint that he did on this opening day roster that the Giants built and released on Wednesday night is saying, hey, look, we know that we don't have that many left-handed relievers. And we know that we don't have any left-handed bench players. But that doesn't really matter. We broke camp with the 26 best baseball players. We broke camp with the guys who won jobs down in Scottsdale. And we were going to win or lose early season games with those players. And on Thursday, the Giants won because of the players that performed well during spring training and the players that showed up on opening day pulling toward the same goal. Not giving up, not being frustrated the team was down in late innings, not being frustrated by the fact that the offense was overpowered by Hunter Green early, knowing that if they could just stay in the game, they could win this thing. So what I want to do is the anatomy of the comeback, the anatomy of the Giants' opening day 6-4 win over the Cincinnati Reds. And let's start really with how the Giants fell behind. Logan Webb got behind early. First inning was not his friend in the year 2024. In fact, if he had clean first innings about half the time, he probably would have won the Cy Young Award. Instead, it was the inning that haunted him. When he came out of the bullpen in the All-Star game, it wasn't a clean inning. It was just as if Logan Webb could never get the first inning right, but everything after that, he would do extremely well. Well, today, he got 2 outs, walked 2 batters, and then gave up the hit to Heimer Candelario, and the Cincinnati Reds got on the board. And then you had Logan Webb giving up 2 more in the third inning against the Reds. Heimer Candelario driving in a pair of runs, putting the Giants behind 3-0. But that was not the story of the game. A 2022, 2023, 2024 Giants team that fell behind early, you could oftentimes count them out of ball games. Now, there were different portions of those seasons. I look at May and June specifically in 23 and 24, where the Giants did mount a lot of comebacks. They did get into other teams' bullpens, and they did cause havoc. But there were also times, particularly down the stretch last year, where if the Giants would fall behind early, you could essentially write this team off. And so Thursday's game against Cincinnati was it was going to be a measuring stick of some sort. It wasn't going to be able to tell you a whole lot about what this team will do for the remainder of the regular season, about what this team will do in the remainder of the series against the Cincinnati Reds. But it was going to tell you what kind of a tone would be set on opening day. And the Giants were not deterred. In the fourth inning, Hunter Green is cruising. The Giants cannot touch the right-handed pitcher from the Cincinnati Reds, and Jung-Hoo Lee steps up to the plate just hoping to get on base. And I think that mentality, just doing your job, it's kind of a Bill Belichick mentality from football, but hey, you don't need a 3-run home run to get this thing back because there's no one on base. And at the time, the Giants weren't getting anyone on base. So all Jung-Hoo Lee was trying to do was give the Giants some momentum and do his job. And with 1 out, after a Willie Adamas fly out to Jake Fraley, Jung-Hoo Lee drew the walk. Then Matt Chapman popped out. There's 2 outs. There's a runner on first. And really, there's not that much hope because Hunter Green had been so dominant. He'd given up, 1 hit to that point? It was Mike Yastrzemski. But really, the Giants were overpowered at the plate, and that includes Ramos, who was overpowered in his first plate appearance by Hunter Green. Struck out in the 3 appearances in which he didn't do damage. But in the 4th inning, he did. He hit a ball out to right field. He crushed it. He knew it from the batter's box, even though it barely snuck over the right field wall, even though it was in, the 3rd or 4th row of the bleachers. Elliot Ramos knew off the bat that ball was gone, that the Giants were cutting in to the Cincinnati lead. And that home run made a huge difference. And I'll get into Elliot Ramos and the significance of his contribution on Thursday and last season later on. But what I want to do right now is touch on how the Giants kept this close. Credit to Logan Webb, who gave up 3 runs the first 3 innings of the ball game, but threw a scoreless 4th and 5th inning, who had runners on the bases all afternoon, but pitched his way out of jams. The stat line was not pretty. 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 walks, but he gave up just 3 runs, and he did strike out 5. He managed to get out of jams in a ballpark where a lot of pitchers, they're worse for the wear. Great American Ballpark, as Jeff Samardzija used to say, plays like Great American Small Park, and it can turn offense-friendly in a hurry. But on opening day, the Giants managed to hold the Reds off the board from the 3rd inning to the 9th inning, and Logan Webb played a huge role in turning things over to the bullpen and making sure that Bob Melvin had his best options available when he needed them. So after Webb exits the game following 5 innings, Melvin turns things over in the 6th to Randy Rodriguez. And to paint a picture of the anatomy of the comeback, you have to look at the role that a bullpen plays. When you're trailing 3-2, you don't go to your best arms. You don't go to Camilo Doval. You don't go to Tyler Rogers. You don't go to Ryan Walker in those situations, at least early in a game. But in the 6th inning, the Giants were able to go to Randy Rodriguez, a young right-hander who can touch 100 on the radar gun. What a luxury it is when the 6th or the 7th guy in your bullpen who has minor league options can hit triple digits and can locate the ball as well as Randy Rodriguez did. Struck out 2 guys in that 6th inning and made it look easy. There were times last season where Randy Rodriguez looked like he was going to be the breakout arm for the Giants, and there were times where he just didn't have control of his stuff. On Thursday, he had control for much of spring training. He had control, and I'm excited the Giants kept him on this opening day roster and expect to use him a lot moving forward. I'm excited that for a team that will need to go 10, 11, 12 deep in the bullpen over the course of the first few months of the season, they'll need to rotate in Sean Jelly and Tristan Beck and a wide assortment of different players. That Randy Rodriguez isn't already among your top 3 because he's got top 3 potential. He even has closer potential. And he's throwing the 6th inning on opening day when you're losing. It tells you your bullpen's stocked. 7th inning comes around. Giants know that they're going to get left-handers at the top of the Reds lineup. They've also got Jose Trevino at the bottom of the Reds order. And Eric Miller comes on, the lone left-hander in the Giants bullpen. The lone southpaw who, look, if they don't add Joey Lucchesi to this roster early on this season, Eric Miller might pitch 80 times this year. He might pitch 40 times by the time the month of June rolls around. Eric Miller's arm is going to be worn out. The Giants did not shy away from going to him on opening day, and he looked good. You know, the front office, led by Farhan Zaidi, was the one that acquired Eric Miller. They were the ones who were really excited about this guy, but Buster Posey, he gets to reap the reward of keeping Eric Miller. And Bob Melvin, he's going to use him a whole heck of a lot this year if the 7th inning looks like it did on Thursday afternoon in Cincinnati. So he throws a clean inning, including 1 strikeout. Giants still struggling. They can't scratch across anything against the Cincinnati relievers. Hunter Green threw just 5 innings, but it was Scott Barlow, former Kansas City closer, who threw the 6th. Emilio Pagan with a very clean 7th. And in the 8th inning, Tony Santillan comes out, and he just blows hitters away. This matchup on opening day, I know that it was billed as this Webb and Green showdown, and that's what it was in the early innings. Credit to Cincinnati for getting to Logan Webb early, and credit to Elliot Ramos for getting on the board against Hunter Green. But man, I look at these relievers, and both of these bullpens came out guns a-blazing with flamethrowers, with guys with great off-speed pitches. And I looked at Pagan with a very clean 7th and Santillan with the 8th. I was thinking, I don't know what this 9th inning is going to look like for the San Francisco Giants, but it may not be pretty. So the Giants need to do their own work in the bottom of the 8th inning to keep Cincinnati off the board, to ensure that the deficit would stay just 1 run. So who does Bob Melvin go to but Tyler Rogers? A guy who touched the ball, 77 times a season ago, and he'll probably do so again this year. Talked to Alex Simon earlier this week on Sports Phone KNBR, and the SF Gate sports editor said, you're going to see Tyler Rogers just about every other day. He's the only pitcher in Major League Baseball who throws from an arm angle that's even sidearm, which is less stressful than the over-the-top or three-quarters delivery. And Rogers throws from the submarine angle. You can go to him every other day. He's more durable than the vast majority of Major League relievers. And since he made his debut in 2019, no pitcher across baseball has made more appearances. Tyler Rogers is going to be that guy in the Giants bullpen, regardless whether you like it or not. And there's a few blowups every year. A few times, eighth inning comes around, and Tyler Rogers is going to give up 3 or 4 runs, a few days where he doesn't have it. But 70 times, he will have it. And 70 times included one on Thursday against Cincinnati. So the 9th inning rolls around, and in comes Ian Gibaut. And keep this in mind. If Alexis Diaz, the Cincinnati Reds closer, is able to go on opening day, the Giants probably don't win this ball game. Alexis Diaz, one of the better young closers in Major League Baseball. Brother of Edwin Diaz, flamethrower. He's just someone who, in his career, I think, has established himself as one of the go-to guys. 2.93 career ERA, 75 saves with the Reds. And last year was a 3.99 ERA. Last year, you could touch him up a little bit. The strikeout numbers were down, but he doesn't give up home runs. He's given up 15 career homers in 190 games. He doesn't do that. And so the Giants probably aren't getting that Wilmer Flores home run in the 9th inning if you see Alexis Diaz. But Terry Francona, the Hall of Fame manager who's back in the dugout with the Cincinnati Reds, he goes to Ian Gibaut. Ian Gibaut, who, I have nice things to say about his Major League career. This guy's carved something out for himself. Former 11th round draft pick, Tampa Bay Rays guy who's made it to the big leagues. It's difficult. Career 4.33 ERA. He was a surprising addition to this Cincinnati Reds roster. And so to see him in the 9th inning on Thursday, I didn't expect it. Didn't expect it in the slightest. And yet, the Giants were the beneficiaries. With Alexis Diaz on the IL, with Terry Francona going to his best relievers earlier in that ball game in place of Hunter Green, who only threw 5 because the Giants racked up some pitches early on Green. They benefited. Green threw 84 pitches. He probably could have come out for the 6th. Webb threw 78. He probably could have come out for the 6th too, but both managers were conservative with their starting pitchers, and the Giants had the deeper bullpen, and it showed when they went from Randy Rodriguez to Eric Miller to Tyler Rogers to Ryan Walker, and the Reds went from Scott Barlow to Emilio Pagan to Tony Santillan to Ian Gibaut, who is not Alexis Diaz. And again, the 9th inning begins, and I think the Giants fans, even at the time, couldn't cling to a whole lot of hope. Even though the Giants found ways in spring training, Thursday felt different because Hunter Green was blowing them away early, and they didn't look great against those best Reds relievers that they saw in the 6th, 7th, and 8th. So Gibaut takes the mound, and Willie Adamas strikes out for the 3rd time in the afternoon. Not the best debut to write home about for Willie Adamas, but there will be days this season where Willie Adamas does get to be the star of the show. There will be times throughout this 7-year contract where he is worth $182 million. It's good that the Giants can win when he's not the star. Much like in the 4th inning, the Giants need a spark, and Jung-Hoo Lee provides it by drawing a walk. Very patient at bat, worked the count against Gibaut, and made sure that he was not going to give in. It mattered. Then Matt Chapman steps up to the plate. With Jung-Hoo Lee over on first base, the Cincinnati Reds, they pull their infield to the left side. And, traditionally, if there was no shift at all, and I know the shift rules are in effect so that you can't completely swing guys over to that side of the infield, but you can still open up a big hole on the right side if you want to prevent against a right-handed hitter going to the left side of the infield. Well, the Cincinnati Reds did exactly that. Chapman shoots a little squibber through the right side of the infield. Jung-Hoo Lee races first to third. There was never in doubt that he was going to make it, and Chapman with a great piece of situational hitting, which is so important to the success of any baseball team. Situational hitting is the key to big innings. It's the key to offensive explosions. And on Thursday afternoon at Great American Ballpark, it was the key to ensuring that the Giants had an opportunity against Gibaut and the Reds. So up comes Elliot Ramos, and it was not his finest hour. Sacrifice fly would have gotten the job done. It's exactly what the Giants needed. Instead, he watches strike 3 A pitch that was probably below the strike zone, but a pitch that I think in 2025 you will see the Giants try to foul off more often than not. Those borderline pitches that during the Farhan Zaidi era they wouldn't protect against. Now Buster Posey's in charge. And Buster Posey hated striking out as a player. He also was completely adept at the two-strike situational hitting where you needed to shorten up, where you need to have a different approach. And I think you will see that throughout the organization. You will see that reflected in the Major League coaching staff. I've heard Pat Burrell talking about that, Giants' primary hitting coach, and you saw that today with Patrick Bailey in the at-bat that followed Elliot Ramos. It didn't get to 2 strikes against Patrick Bailey, but when Jabot went 3-0 on Bailey and threw a fastball over the heart of the plate, Bailey swung at the pitch. And I thought that was great situational hitting because there were 2 outs on the board, 3-0. It was probably the best offering you're going to see the entire at-bat. And Bailey went after it. Traditionally in Major League Baseball, you don't chase the 3-0 pitch, especially in that situation. But he got the fastball. He wanted outside corner. He just missed it. Fouled it off. Next offering from Jabot. Bailey made sure he did not miss it. Squeezes one through the middle of the infield. Past the dive of the Reds' second baseman. At that time in the ball game, it was still Matt McClain. And the Giants tie it up. Incredible comeback and incredible work from Patrick Bailey to ensure that the Giants had the opportunity to send things to the bottom of the 9th with a chance to keep the game going. But that wasn't it. Jabot had lost it, and up came Wilmer Flores, the forgotten man on this Giants 26-man roster, the guy who everyone's overlooked entering the 2025 season, and Wilmer Flores smacked one in the left field bleachers. It was a reminder of why you don't give up on veteran players who just happen to have a bad year because of an injury. It was a reminder of how good and important quality at bats can be for an offense and how wearing relief pitchers down can ultimately lead to huge innings. The Giants wore Ian Jabot down, and Wilmer Flores was the beneficiary. After Patrick Bailey delivered in the high-pressure moment, it took all the pressure off of Wilmer Flores. Ian Jabot loosened up and left a pitch over the heart of the plate, and Flores did not miss it. A man who in 2023 led the Giants with 23 home runs and an .863 OPS hopes to regain that form this year. Last year, just 4 home runs, just a .595 OPS in 71 games before he went down with a knee injury that had bothered him all year long. Got the surgery. The Giants expect a huge bounce back from him. Remember, Flores is just 33 years old. He's not that old in the span of long Major League Baseball careers, and he's had a long one, 12 years already. This is his 13th season in the big leagues. And Wilmer Flores proved that, hey, he can still get the job done, and the Giants were thrilled to have him on the roster today. There were some questions after the surgery last season. Would he be back? Would the Giants be willing to pay him the money he was owed, or would he be traded this offseason? Buster Posey, happy he kept his former teammate around. Bottom of the 9th rolls around. The anatomy of the comeback is finished. The Giants just have to hang on, and Ryan Walker sure made it interesting. He sure did. He allows a base runner, TJ Friedel, the single. It was Jacob Hurtubise who reached on the hit by pitch. Then it was TJ Friedel with a line drive single. And then it was Matt McClain hitting the ball to the warning track. It was ultimately tracked down by Elliot Ramos out in left field. And speaking of Ramos, we'll dive in more on the start in left field, what he means to the Giants organization. More to get to here on KNBR. I am Kerry Crowley. Giants baseball season underway. More from Cincinnati all weekend long here on KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
Here's the 1-2 pitch. Flores swings and he hits one a long way to left field. Way back there. Adios! Pelota! Big fly. Boom! And the Giants have a 6-3 lead.
Well, as soon as I hit, I knew it was gone. I was just trying to keep my cool and that at bat. Not to rush anything, and just I was just looking for a base hit, and I got rewarded with a homer.
Our KNBR Giants warm-up keeps rolling on the Sports Leader.
We are back. We are so back. Kerry Crowley hanging out with you folks. Giants warm-up, very first warm-up of the season. We'll be hanging with you every Saturday and Sunday all season long as we roll through this 162-game stretch. The 1-0 San Francisco Giants take on the 0-1 Cincinnati Reds this afternoon. First pitch coming your way at 1:10 from Great American Ballpark, 4:10 Eastern Time. So late afternoon sunlight expected in Cincinnati. Here's the lineup that Giants manager Bob Melvin put out today behind starting pitcher Justin Verlander, who we opened the show talking about. The 42-year-old taking the mound, chasing 300 career wins, wants to pitch into his mid-40s, and he should have the opportunity to do so if he has a bounce-back season here with the San Francisco Giants. He looked great during spring training. The Giants excited about his four-pitch mix and excited to see how he mixes those in against the Cincinnati Reds today. So Bob Melvin going with Elliot Ramos leading things off in left field. Willie Adamas, the shortstop today for the San Francisco Giants, he'll bat second. Jung-Hoo Lee hitting third and playing center field. Matt Chapman, the cleanup man, he'll bat fourth and play third base. Wilmer Flores, the hero from Thursday's ball game, over at first base batting fifth. Luis Matos making his season debut in the sixth spot in the lineup and playing right field. Patrick Bailey will hit seventh and do the catching today for the Giants. Casey Schmidt, the designated hitter this afternoon, he hits eighth, and then Tyler Fitzgerald in the 9 spot in the order after a rough spring and a rough debut on Thursday afternoon against the Cincinnati Reds. Fitzgerald once again in the 9 spot in the order and playing second base. So let's get into this Giants lineup that they've rolled out against left-hander Nick Lodolo taking the start today for Terry Francona's ball club. It's a different mix than what you saw on Thursday against the righty Hunter Green. The Giants will use this lineup at the beginning of the season against left-handed starters. And what I mean by this lineup is you'll see Elliot Ramos batting in the leadoff spot. The Giants want to maximize his opportunities, and there's a good reason. Even though Ramos took right-hander Hunter Green deep to get the Giants on the board for the season on Thursday, this is a player who became an all-star in 2024 and became one of the Giants' most important offensive forces because of the damage that he did against left-handed pitching. You look at Ramos and you look at what he did against righties, and it was downright pedestrian. It was what you expect from a league average outfielder. What Ramos did especially well last season was crush southpaws. This guy took advantage. He hit better than Aaron Judge against left-handed starters and relievers across the majors. He took advantage of nearly every opportunity, 10 of his 22 home runs last season coming against lefties, and very limited opportunities compared to the amount of starts and amount of at-bats that he had, plate appearances against right-handed pitchers. So if they put Ramos at the top of the order, the Giants are expecting him to be a table setter, but also someone who can do a lot of damage, who can get on base, not just draw walks and hit singles, but hit home runs out of leadoff spot in the order, extra base hits, doubles, and triples. They're expecting a lot from this kid this season. Settling into left field, the Giants' 19th different opening day starter over the last 19 seasons in left field, and there is a ton of hope inside the organization. There's a ton of hope from Elliot Ramos that he can end this drought next season, that he can start in left field and end this streak, become the Giants' everyday left fielder for years to come. Buster Posey said it on opening day in the dugout in Cincinnati, talking to Giants beat reporters who made the trip out to Great American Ballpark this week. He said, look, I hope that he plays that position. I hope that he's there for us for the next 10 opening days. And I think that tells you the kind of internal optimism the Giants have inside their organization. So the other key components to this Giants lineup that I want to get into, you've got Willy Adamas batting second, and this is going to be a really key and important spot for Adamas all season long. He'll hit second against righties and lefties. He got off to a bad start. There's no getting around that. 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts, and a misplay in the middle innings on Thursday afternoon behind Logan Webb, where he was kind of in between. Heimer Candelario hit a ball up the middle, and Adamas fields it. He could have gone to first base right away. He could have gone to second base right away and tried to get Elly De La Cruz, the exceptionally speedy runner for the Cincinnati Reds. Instead, he's caught in between, tries to go to second, then goes over to first, and it was too late. And by that point, Adamas had made the mistake in the field. It wasn't an error in the box score, but it was kind of a mental error, in my opinion. He was under a ton of pressure, but that's the play that the best defensive shortstops have to make. Adamas didn't make it, but nevertheless, you look up at the end of the ballgame when Wilmer Flores hits that go-ahead 3-run home run, and the first guy out of the dugout, the first guy hopping the rail and congratulating Flores is Willy Adamas. He's a tone setter in the clubhouse. He's someone who's expected to be a foundational piece of this Giants culture over the next 7 seasons with that record-setting contract the Giants and Buster Posey awarded him with this offseason. So I loved what I saw from a personality standpoint from Adamas on Thursday, and you hope that today's the day that he gets his season on track, that he bounces back from a rough opener and is able to give the Giants some life out of the 2 spot in the order. It's interesting. They'll go with Elliot Ramos first, Willy Adamas second, and then Jung-Hoo Lee, the only left-hander in the Giants order today other than the catcher Patrick Bailey, who of course is a switch hitter. He is someone who so Patrick Bailey will actually hit right-handed today against Nick Lodolo. I should say that because he's a switch hitter, he'll hit right-handed, but he has the option to hit left-handed later in the game if the Cincinnati Reds and Terry Francona go to their bevy of right-handed relievers. So it's Jung-Hoo Lee in the 3 spot in the order. Didn't have a hit in Thursday's ball game, but really had 2 of the best plate appearances for the Giants. The reason that they win that ball game, in my opinion, I talked about this the last segment, is Jung-Hoo Lee's ability to get on base against Hunter Green, work a count against him early in that game, and then set up Elliot Ramos for the 11-pitch epic at bat that ends in the home run just over the right field wall. And then he sets the stage in the 9th inning against Ian Jabot by drawing the walk. Remember, he was down 0-2 in that count against Jabot, fouled off a few pitches, was able to get his way over to first base before Matt Chapman moved him to third. And then the Giants ultimately drove him in. It was Patrick Bailey bringing in Jung-Hoo Lee, who was the game-tying run in Thursday's ballgame. Matt Chapman, Wilmer Flores, you'll see in the middle of the lineup all season long against left-handers. And here's an interesting situation with the Giants. So Mike Yastrzemski goes out, and he gets 2 hits on opening day. Follows up a really sensational spring for Mike Yastrzemski. He was locked in. He was dialed in down in Scottsdale, the best he's looked in a few years. And they're going to go with a true platoon at the right field position right now, at least on the road. I want to see what they do at home. I'm interested to see if Bob Melvin has as much confidence in Luis Matos to play right field at home at Oracle Park, where it's a little more dangerous with that outfield wall where Yastrzemski is so valuable defensively. But today, against the lefty Nick Lodolo, Matos gets the call in the 6th spot in the order. And I like this decision because Matos earned his way there. during spring training. I think that you look at his body of work in the Cactus League, and this is someone who clearly went down this offseason in Latin America and showed that he was an improved hitter. He had more plate discipline. He was making more solid contact. He played in the winter leagues, and he showed up to spring training ready to go, added a little more heft to his frame. And I want to see what Luis Matos can do against left-handed starters, because he hit the ball out of the ballpark a few times down in Scottsdale. How will that translate to ballparks around Major League Baseball? Remember, we've seen the ceiling for Luis Matos. We know that it's exceptional. We know that at his best, he can be a really, really talented player. We saw with the National League Player of the Week award that he won last year. The question is, how consistent can Luis Matos be? Because we saw it for the next 2-3 weeks where he just couldn't get bat to ball. He struck out. He was chasing outside the strike zone. It was a mess ever since then. And then he went down to AAA Sacramento and wasn't heard from a whole lot later on in the season. The other wrinkle in the Giants lineup today. So on Thursday, with the right-hander on the mound in Hunter Green, the Giants started the game with Lamont Wade Jr. over at first base and with Wilmer Flores as the designated hitter. Well, Flores gets the call over at first base today, hitting fifth. The DH today for the San Francisco Giants is Casey Schmidt. And this is a situation where the Giants lineup would probably look a little bit different. They'd have Gerard Encarnacion in the order, maybe in the fifth slot ahead of Flores, maybe in the sixth slot right behind Flores. But with Encarnacion out to begin the season with that finger surgery that he had earlier this week, the Giants going with Casey Schmidt as their designated hitter, backup infielder to both Matt Chapman over at third base and Willie Adamas at shortstop, and quite honestly, to Tyler Fitzgerald at second base. It's clear that Casey Schmidt is the primary backup at all three of those positions. They like Christian Koss off the bench. There's a reason that Koss made this opening day roster, but Schmidt gets the first crack with Encarnacion on the injured list. The Giants want another right-hander in there against Lodolo. Will they stick with him late in the game? Will they stick with him? What will they do with Lamont Wade Jr. and Mike Yastrzemski coming off the bench? The Giants have some optionality there, where Schmidt's the DH, Tyler Fitzgerald is the second baseman. They can get creative in the late innings if Terry Francona goes to a right-hander out of the bullpen. So that's something that I'm fascinated to see today. When we come back, we give you the Cincinnati Reds lineup, break down the Giants' bullpen situation, how they can attack Cincinnati today with a well-rested group of relievers coming off of a pretty easy week, and a number of Giants' important pitchers through on Thursday behind Logan Webb, but nevertheless, a full arsenal of relievers behind Justin Verlander today for Bob Melvin. So when we come back, we'll break down the Reds lineup. We'll look around Major League Baseball. I'm Kerry Crowley. The show is Giants Warm Up. You're listening to KNBR 104.5 680, the sports leader.
Still full, 3-2. Green pitches. Ramos hits a high drive to right field. Going back on it, Fraley. At the wall, it is gone! Elliot Ramos, what an at-bat! To the opposite field, a two-run homer. The first home run of the year for the Giants, the first runs of the year for the Giants, and that was an awesome at-bat. Power against power, and Ramos ultimately beat him.
Welcome back to our KNBR Giants warm-up on the Sports Leader.
Look, there's palpable excitement when opening day rolls around for all 30 franchises. I don't care if you're a fan of the Chicago White Sox, the Los Angeles Angels, or the Colorado Rockies. You have a right to get excited on day one of the regular season. But I feel like it's a little different for Giants fans, and there's a reason why. I've always felt that the first home run call of the year, the first save of the year, the first win of the year is a little bit more special because it's called by the likes of Dwayne Kuiper, John Miller, or Dave Fleming. And these are the voices that bring us closer to Giants baseball. These are the voices that have carried us through the last few decades. And Dave Fleming's not a part of that. I mean, he's 2 decades on the mic for the San Francisco Giants. What a run it's been for him. But you think about the legacies that John Miller and Dwayne Kuiper have as play-by-play men in Major League Baseball. Obviously, John Miller, a Ford C. Frick Award winner, part of baseball's Hall of Fame, and Kuiper will be there soon. And one day, 20, 30, 40 years from now, Dave Fleming should be there as well. But in listening to these home run calls with John Miller on the mic for the Wilmer Flores call and Dave Fleming calling Elliot Ramos's blast, it just serves as a reminder of how lucky San Francisco Giants fans are, and really how lucky anyone who takes in baseball around the Bay Area is to have such amazing broadcasters calling the action and bringing you closer to the team every season long. I feel it's such a privilege to listen to these excellent, excellent voices break things down, and they're the soundtracks of summer. And I know that it's still just March 29th. know that we're in the early days of the regular season, but they are the soundtrack to summers. They always have been, and they always will be. A lot of this Giants broadcast crew just signed contract extensions to remain with the team over the next few seasons, and really there's no reason to believe that anyone would want these tenures to end in San Francisco anytime soon. They do such a great job. So before the last break here on Giants Warm-Up, we gave you the San Francisco Giants lineup. We'll run through it one more time. Justin Verlander on the hill for the Giants, making his debut for the team at 42 years old. It's Elliot Ramos in left field, Willie Adamas batting second. The shortstop, Jung-Hoo Lee, hits third. He's the center fielder. Matt Chapman, the cleanup man, hitting fourth today and playing third base. Wilmer Flores over at first base batting fifth. Luis Matos' season debut out in right field. He'll hit sixth. Patrick Bailey, the switch-hitting catcher, behind the plate. In the seventh spot in the lineup, Casey Schmidt, the designated hitter, his first crack in the regular season. He hits eighth, and Tyler Fitzgerald rounds out the Giants lineup, batting ninth and playing second base. Here's how Terry Francona will set things up for the Cincinnati Reds, and we'll get into a more detailed look at Cincinnati and how the Giants can counter this Reds lineup today. It's TJ Friedl in the leadoff spot today for the Reds. He had 2 hits in Thursday's ballgame. Friedl's a tough out. I like this guy's approach. To be honest with you, if he ever became a free agent, if he ever became a trade target, I think that his skill set would really work at Oracle Park. He's a pesky hitter. He's a line drive guy. I just think that TJ Friedl is a really good table setter atop the lineup for Cincinnati and really one of the more underrated players in Major League Baseball. Behind Friedl, it's Matt McClain, the second baseman for Cincinnati. He'll hit second. He went 0 for 5 with a couple of strikeouts in Thursday's ballgame, but he also hit that long drive to the left field wall that Elliot Ramos caught to end the game in the ninth inning. It was dangerous territory. Maybe later on in the summer, maybe warmer weather, Matt McClain does send that ball into the left field bleachers. He got a completely different ballgame in the ninth inning, but the Giants, the beneficiaries of that March weather in Cincinnati, McClain's ball didn't carry nearly as well as the one that Wilmer Flores hit on the screws in the top half of the inning. Elly De La Cruz, the shortstop for Cincinnati, he hits third. 833 the OPS without saying too much after one game, but man, Elly De La Cruz, wouldn't shock me if that OPS was up to 900 by the end of this month, and he finished at over 900 this season. He's got 30 homer talent. He's a guy who could steal 70 or 80 bases. Giants have to be so careful with him. The early rallies that Cincinnati started against Logan Webb started because Elly De La Cruz got on the bases, and he is so dangerous, almost unlike any other player across Major League Baseball, because not only is he a threat to go every single pitch, but he could also hit one out of the ballpark when you lay one over the heart of the plate. I think the world of Elly De La Cruz as a player, and I think this is the year where he really cuts down on the strikeouts, taps into a little bit more power, and becomes the bona fide superstar. I think he really is a superstar, the way that the vast majority of baseball fans look at this sport, but I think that you're going to see him reach an entirely different level in the year 2025 as he continues to mature and get better and get more accustomed to playing at the major leagues and facing different types of pitches. He'll get a lot more off speed this year. He'll have to be more selective at the plate. He's been somewhat of a free swinger early in his career, but man, Elly De La Cruz, someone who's the envy of 29 other teams. He's in the heart of the order for the Cincinnati Reds. Terry Francona's squad has Gavin Lux batting cleanup today, playing left field, the former Dodger, who, of course, Giants fans know quite well. Hit the ball to the warning track in, Game 3 of the NLDS down there in Los Angeles in 2021 off of Camilo Doval, when the Giants were still clinging to hope that they could win that series and unseat the Dodgers and move past them in the NLDS. Gavin Lux hit that shot to left center field that was ultimately tracked down that looked like it could do damage, and that's my lasting memory of him in a Dodgers uniform, making an out even though he was a thorn in the Giants' side through the years. Heimer Candelario, the designated hitter today for the Cincinnati Reds, he had 3 ribbies in Thursday's ball game, the first 3 RBIs that Cincinnati put on the board against the Giants, including Logan Webb on the hill. It was Candelario who did the damage against him. A couple of hits in that ball game for the veteran DH. Christian Encarnacion Strand, Bay Area guy, hitting 6 today for Terry Francona's team. He's over at first base. Santiago Espinal gets the call over at third base today. He'll hit 7th. It's Jake Fraley out in right field. He'll bat 8th. And then Jose Trevino, the catcher at the bottom of the lineup for Cincinnati, he will bat 9th for Terry Francona's team. So obviously you've got a nice mix there. It goes lefty-righty, switch hitter, lefty, switch hitter, righty-righty, lefty-righty up against Justin Verlander for the San Francisco Giants. And, I think the Cincinnati Reds kind of maximizing the number of left-handers that they've got in there. Santiago Espinal making his season debut, right-hander in the 7th spot in the order. And so that's one where the Reds, if they wanted to, could flip things late in the ballgame, bring someone off the bench. But it's interesting because Bob Melvin's bullpen doesn't really feature many left-handed options. In fact, there's only one left-handed option down there, and he threw in Thursday's ball game. Eric Miller ended up pitching for the San Francisco Giants through a scoreless seventh inning and looked great doing so. Eric Miller going to be counted on. I said this, I think, on the post-game show on Thursday evening, but Eric Miller's going to be counted on about 80 times this season. And this includes if the Giants end up adding another left-hander to this bullpen, to this pitching staff. But man, he is going to face just about every premium left-handed hitter that the Giants square off against. I'm already circling those Los Angeles games on the calendar when he has to go up against Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman this year. The Dodgers off to an incredible 4-0 start already. Some theatrics and heroics in Los Angeles last night that we'll get into when we take our spin around Major League Baseball. But Eric Miller's the one left-hander the Giants have down in their bullpen. You saw him in the 7th inning on Thursday. You also saw Randy Rodriguez in the 6th inning with the Giants trailing 3-2 on Thursday. I thought it was interesting that they were able to go to someone who can throw 99, 100 miles an hour. I think that tells you if he's your 5th or 6th reliever in the Giants bullpen and he throws 99 to 100 and he's got the break that he does on his off-speed pitch, that is a really deep bullpen that Bob Melvin is working with. So a few guys that I wouldn't be shocked to see today, regardless of what the score looks like. I think the Giants will want to get a look at Lou Trevino in the 6th or the 7th inning. He's not someone who I think is going to be taking down the really high-leverage innings early in the season, but Lou Trevino's got that history with Bob Melvin, had a great career with him in Oakland with the A's. It's been a few years since he's been on Major League roster, battled injuries over the last few seasons, but certainly earned his way onto this roster during spring training. It was no surprise that when the Giants signed him during, I think it was late January or early February, that he got the invitation to big league camp, and then he was immediately someone who was in competition for a roster spot. He helped his case by looking great this spring. The fastball was up in the mid-90s. Breaking ball looked sharp. Lou Trevino is going to be someone that I think that Bob Melvin leans on early in the season. Have you seen another situation? It's 2-2, 3-3, 3-2, 4-3, that kind of a ball game in the 5th or the 6th. Don't be surprised if Bob Melvin goes to Lou Trevino out of the bullpen first today. The other pitcher who we didn't see in Thursday's game out of the bullpen for the San Francisco Giants, who could factor into today's game, is Camilo Doval, who, of course, going to be a 7th, 8th, and potentially at times this season, even a 9th inning guy. Remember, Doval lost the closer job last year to Ryan Walker in the middle of the season. It was really late July, early August that Walker took over as the closer. Doval was sent down to AAA Sacramento to try to sort things out. Doval looked like a completely different pitcher during the month of February and March down there in spring training with the San Francisco Giants in Scottsdale. Slower heartbeat. He's always been kind of a slower guy out of the bullpen, but once he gets on the mound, it's nothing but gas. It's 100 plus miles an hour with the cutter. The slider was wipeout during spring training. Giants excited to get a look at him. And then the other pitcher who we did not see, Spencer Bivens. Spencer Bivens, someone who will probably pitch if the Giants are down multiple runs today. He's someone who can give you maybe 2 innings at a time. He's maybe the long man right now. The other long man who I think that the Giants are looking to save for a multi-inning opportunity is Hayden Birdsong, who ultimately lost the 5th starter competition to Landon Roop. Landon Roop expected to go on Tuesday against the Houston Astros in Minute Maid Park. But I think that Birdsong's someone who could pitch behind Jordan Hicks in Monday's game. If you get 4 innings out of Hicks, assuming that Verlander gives you 5+, assuming that Robbie Ray gives you 5+ tomorrow in Cincinnati in the series finale, I think that they'll want to go with Birdsong for multiple innings behind Jordan Hicks in Monday's ball game, because this is a point in the season where you don't need to stretch out Jordan Hicks. You don't need him throwing 80+ pitches. If he gives you 4 innings and goes 75 pitches, you bring in Birdsong, have him go 4 innings, give you 60 to 75 pitches, and then you've got yourself a bullpen that's refreshed, reset, and ready to go for the final 2 games of that series against the Astros. And you anticipate, look, you're probably not going to get more than 5 out of Landon Roop, who's back in the Giants rotation after a stellar spring. So you need a number of arms to be able to go and be fresh. So that's why Justin Verlander's start today against this Cincinnati lineup is so important for Bob Melvin and this squad, because this is a Giants team that had yesterday off, that has a number of bullpen arms who are very fresh. But if you get a slow start or a short start out of Justin Verlander today, then you're talking about exhausting this bullpen early in the season before you get to that Thursday off day. Then you're talking about using a bunch of different arms and potentially Eric Miller, Randy Rodriguez, Tyler Rogers, Ryan Walker for the second time. Of course, you want to see Walker in today's ball game because it would mean the Giants held a lead in the 9th inning. But I think that early in the season, you really want to be conservative with the bullpen. You know that Miller's going to ultimately face the best left-handers for every team that the Giants go up against. He's going to be someone who makes 80-plus appearances for the Giants this season. Tyler Rogers will be counted on 70-plus times, and you want to get Ryan Walker and Camilo Doval into 70-plus games this season. It's managing the other pitchers in your bullpen, making sure that, Spencer Bivens is able to go multiple innings at a time when he comes onto the hill, that Randy Rodriguez, he's not throwing every other day this season. Lou Trevino, who's been dealing with injuries over the last few years, he's not asked to go every other day throughout the late portion of March, early portion of April, so that these guys can really round into form by the time that May, June, and July roll around. Of course, the Giants will also bring up a number of pitchers from Sacramento over the course of this season. You'll see a Tristan Beck. You'll see a Sean Jelly. You'll see, maybe a Carson Seymour, Carson Ragsdale, Carson Wisenhunt at various junctures of this season. But right now, the Giants want to use this bullpen and want to go with the guys that they came out of spring training with, because they all won jobs. They all perform well down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they all deserve the opportunity to shine early in the season. The bullpen, a focal point for Bob Melvin's squad in the 6-4 win over Cincinnati on Thursday. It has the opportunity to really be one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball this season, and on Thursday it showed that it has the potential to be really, really good. So, early report from today, Alex Pavlich tweeting this out from the Giants dugout down there in Cincinnati. Gerard Encarnacion had his surgery on Friday afternoon in Los Angeles. The Giants estimate 8 weeks before Encarnacion will return to this lineup. As Alex says, it'll be a lot of Wilmer Flores and the young guys in the DH spot early on this season. On Thursday, you saw Flores in that spot with Lamont Wade Jr. making the start over at first base. Today, you see Flores playing first base as the Giants are up against the left-hander Nick Lodolo for the Cincinnati Reds. And so that means Casey Schmidt will get the call at the DH spot. Schmidt hit over 300 during spring training. A lot of Giants fans really feel as if he's poised for a breakout year. We'll see what Schmidt can do today, hitting out of the A spot against the left-hander Nick Lodolo. And of course, the Giants with Mike Yastrzemski, with Lamont Wade Jr. on the bench, so they'll have some optionality late in the game. We'll see if they stick with Schmidt. We'll see if they stick with Tyler Fitzgerald at second base when the going gets tough in the late innings. We saw some great arms out of the Cincinnati bullpen. Scott Barlow in the 6th on Thursday. It was Emilio Pagan with some incredible stuff. That four-seam fastball has some great ride to it in the 7th. Tony Santillan throwing hard in the 8th inning, in on the hands of right-handed hitters. But the Giants ultimately got to Ian Jabot in the 9th, and that's what ultimately made the difference in that 6-4 win on Thursday. Giants going for win number 2 of the season. When we come back, we'll take a look around Major League Baseball. After we do that, your calls later on this hour. 415-808-KNBR is the number. Around 11:30 this morning, we're going to open up the phone lines. Hear your thoughts on how you would approach today's game for the San Francisco Giants. Your thoughts on using Casey Schmidt as the DH and what the Giants should do over the next few weeks with Gerard Encarnacion now anticipated to miss the first 2 months of this regular season. 60-day injured list could be in order for Encarnacion. I'm Kerry Crowley. The show is Giants Warm Up. We're just getting rolling here on KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
The pitch on the way. Swing and a ground ball into right center field. Base hit, and this game is tied. Around to third base goes Chapman right after Lee had crossed the plate. And with 2 down in the 9th inning, Patrick Bailey comes through in the clutch. The Giants have tied it at 3.
We're getting you in the mood for a crazy crab sandwich, some garlic fries, a cha-cha bowl, and some orange and black baseball. KNBR's Giants warm-up keeps rolling on the sports leader.
We are back on Giants warm-up. Kerry Crowley getting you set for Giants baseball. First pitch, 1:10 Pacific, 4:10 local time out in Cincinnati. Justin Verlander, the right-hander, making his San Francisco Giants debut, kicking off season number 20 for the San Francisco Giants. Nick Lodolo taking the mound for the Cincinnati Reds. The lefties, so the Giants going with the right-handed heavy lineup. Bob Melvin rolling with Elliot Ramos in the leadoff spot. You'll see that a lot early in the season against lefties, and we will see if it will stick. The Giants want some thump at the top of the order against southpaws, and Ramos certainly can provide that. He showed that he could still hit right-handers too with the home run off of Hunter Green to kick off the Giants scoring for the 2025 season on Thursday afternoon. A pivotal home run for a Giants team that secured that 6-4 comeback win. The call that you heard there to kick us off for this segment, great work from our producer, Rafael Corral, who will be with us all season long, as always. The call that you heard was John Miller in the 9th inning. Patrick Bailey delivering the game-tying single off of Ian Jabot that brings in Jung-Hoo Lee from third base. Really great work from Lee throughout that inning. Of course, works from 0-2 in his count back to drawing a walk against Jabot. Goes first to third on the squibber through the right side of the infield from Matt Chapman, and then comes home on the 2-out single from Patrick Bailey. And look, I've been tough on Bailey in his major league career. Tougher than I would say most analysts, because I think that the Giants are at their best as an organization when they have a catcher who can be a two-way force. And of course, I grew up in the era of Buster Posey being that two-way force for the San Francisco Giants. Once you see a generational player come through and you realize the impact he can have on a team, you like to think that the players behind him would be able to have a similar impact. And of course, no one's going to replace Buster Posey and the legacy that he left behind as the San Francisco Giants catcher for years. But you want to see a catcher who not only plays great defense, but can help you a little bit with the stick. And last year, Patrick Bailey had the 4 hits in the month of August. It was dreadful down the stretch for him. It was the second consecutive consecutive year in which his offense completely fell off toward the end of the season. As a rookie, the Giants essentially said, look, he's fatigued. He's never gone through a full season like this. He hasn't even gone through a full minor league season in his career since being drafted 13th overall out of North Carolina State in 2020. Last year, Giants just felt that mechanically he broke down. It wasn't fatigue in August and September. He was totally lost at the plate. He was in a slump. There was no recovering, and the Giants couldn't get him out of it. What I will say about Patrick Bailey, the hitter, even though he has not proven that he can hit for much average, he has not proven that he can hit for sustained power in his major league career, he has proven that in pivotal moments, in clutch moments, he can step up. I look at the walk-off home run against the Pittsburgh Pirates last season. I look at 2 go-ahead home runs in New York, one in 2023 off of David Robertson, one in 2024 against the Mets as well, where he took the Giants from losing ball games in Queens to winning those games with late-game heroics. And then you look at the walk-off, I think it was a few seasons ago against the Texas Rangers over the left field wall at Oracle Park as a right-handed hitter, and then Bailey as a left-handed hitter on Thursday afternoon against Ian Jabot, sneaking one through the middle of the infield past the diving arm of Matt McClain up the middle. The Giants tie that ball game, and Patrick Bailey playing a role, playing a key part of the offensive comeback against the Cincinnati Reds. So let's take a spin around Major League Baseball this afternoon. Look at the games on the docket. A few already underway and a number that will be coming your way later on this afternoon when the Giants are in action against the Cincinnati Reds. We've got a wild one already in the Bronx. The Yankees up 13-3 on the Milwaukee Brewers today. How about this? Nestor Cortes coming back today for the Milwaukee Brewers, facing his former team. Remember, Nestor Cortes last seen in Game 1 of the World Series, giving up the walk-off grand slam to, or not Game 1 of the World Series, but giving up the walk-off grand slam to Freddie Freeman last year at Dodger Stadium. Just a devastating moment for Cortes in his career, and he ultimately goes out today against his former team, all hyped up, gives up a home run on the first pitch to Paul Goldschmidt. Next pitch, Cody Bellinger, he socks one out. Next pitch, Aaron Judge, he hits a home run. 3 batters later, Austin Wells, he also goes deep for his second homer of the season. How about this? The Yankees up 13-3. Aaron Judge, 2 for 3 right now with 5 runs driven in. Cody Bellinger, 2 for 3 with 2 runs driven in. Anthony Volpe hitting out of the 5th slot in the order, 1 for 2, 3 RBIs. Just an utter mess for the Milwaukee Brewers. Cortes lasted just 2 innings, giving up 8 runs. Connor Thomas came in relief. He hasn't even recorded an out in the bottom of the 3rd inning, and he's given up 5 runs, 4 hits, 2 home runs allowed by Connor Thomas. Not easy work out of the bullpen today for the Milwaukee Brewers. Meanwhile, it's not as if the $218 million man Max Fried has been great for the New York Yankees. In 3 innings, he's given up 4 hits and a walk in his team debut, 3 runs, 2 earned. But Max Fried, in all likelihood, going to pick up his first win in a Yankee uniform because they have spotted him with 13 runs in the first 3 innings, an offensive explosion to a degree that you probably won't see throughout the course of the next 160 games for the New York Yankees. Bottom of the 1st inning in Chicago, where the White Sox looking to build on their strong start to the season. The White Sox 1-0, picking up the win on Thursday over the Los Angeles Angels. And how about this? The Angels had to use a position player on Thursday. Nicky Lopez ended up pitching at the end of that ball game. Utter embarrassment for the Angels franchise that's essentially in a constant cycle of embarrassment with Artie Moreno, their owner, who's led them down just various paths of ineptitude. The Angels lose that ball game. They won't be good this season. The White Sox won't be good either, but they're 1-0 playing in the bottom of the 1st inning out there in Chicago, south side of Chicago this afternoon, hoping for win number 2. Bottom of the 1st inning in St. Louis, where the Cardinals are underway against the Minnesota Twins. Bay Area native Joe Ryan in that ball game starting today for Minnesota. The Cardinals going with their number 2 starter on the season, Eric Fetty, behind Sonny Gray. The Cardinals won on Thursday on opening day. They're back in action. Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Arenado, the heart of their lineup for the Minnesota Twins. It's Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton in the middle of their order. Remember, the Giants a few years ago had that agreement with Carlos Correa, 13 years, $315 million. It all falls through. Instead, since that deal, they've gotten a 6-year, $151 million contract locked up with Matt Chapman, and then the 7-year, $182 million contract with Willy Adamas. So a combined 13 years, a combined $333 million, and you get double the talent, in my opinion. So at the time, I thought the Giants might never recover from letting the deal with Carlos Correa fall through. Thought that the franchise record-setting extension, and having that fall flat was going to be just devastating for this franchise, particularly when dealing with Scott Boras clients in the future. Turned out, wasn't that way at all. The Giants got deals done with Matt Chapman, who, of course, Buster Posey played a signature role in getting that extension locked up with in the month of September. And then Willy Adamas signs that 7-year, $182 million deal that exceeded the value of Posey's contract way back when he signed the 8-year, $162 million extension entering the 2013 season, coming off of the MVP award that he won with the Giants in 2012 and his second World Series ring that he also won during the 2012 season. Other games on the slate this afternoon: the Blue Jays playing host to the Baltimore Orioles, an AL East matchup. Those teams 1-1 for the first two games of the season. Max Scherzer on the hill making his debut for Toronto. It's Dean Kramer who gets the ball for Baltimore. 4:05 start this afternoon on the East Coast for the Washington Nationals against the Philadelphia Phillies. It's Jesus Luzardo taking the ball for the Phillies today. He's someone who I thought was pitching out of the fourth or fifth slot in that rotation. Instead, he will go in Game 2. It's Jake Irvin who gets the call for the Washington Nationals early on in the season. The Colorado Rockies and the Tampa Bay Rays back at it this afternoon down at Steinbrenner Field. How about that? The Rays, of course, not able to play at Tropicana Field this season. Their owner, Stu Sternberg, struggling to get a deal done in the Tampa area right now, in the St. Pete area. They're just really struggling to make headway on a stadium. And of course, after Hurricane Milton's damage, they were not going to be able to play at the Trop this season. So the Rays picked up a game winner on Friday afternoon. That's when they opened their season. 28 of 30 teams were in action on Thursday. The Rays and the Rockies were the teams that weren't. It was Cameron Misner hitting a walk-off home run for Tampa. Zach Littell, forever Giant, he gets the ball today for Tampa. Antonio Senzatella, he takes the ball for the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies 0-1 on the season en route to their next 100-loss campaign. The Miami Marlins and the Pittsburgh Pirates both 1-1. They've split the first two games of the season. Bailey Falter will go for the Pittsburgh Pirates today. Valente Bellozo taking the ball for the Miami Marlins. Later on this afternoon as well, Kansas City Royals play host to the Cleveland Guardians. Good matchup of AL Central teams. Gavin Williams, the good young right-hander, going for Cleveland, and Stephen Vogt, forever Giant, the manager in Cleveland with the Guardians, and Seth Lugo, one of the more intriguing arms in my opinion. He kind of set the template for Jordan Hicks, moving from the bullpen to the rotation. Seth Lugo did so successfully after pitching out of the Mets bullpen. He got the opportunity with the Kansas City Royals, and he made the most of it last year. Was one of the best, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated pitchers in baseball with the work that he did for Kansas City. So I think that he'll have the ball today, and he'll obviously be a name to watch throughout the course of this season. Bruce Bochy's Texas Rangers in action this evening. They lost on opening day after Luke Jackson gave up a home run in the ninth inning. They're taking on the Boston Red Sox. It's Walker Buehler making his Boston debut. Former Dodgers right-hander, of course, signed with the Red Sox on a one-year deal this offseason. And Tyler Mahle going for Bochy's squad. A Rangers team that's got an incredible array of talent in the field. Of course, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, the big talents there. But I just think the Rangers have such a bad bullpen this year that's going to haunt Bruce Bochy. I think that, you look at the 2016 San Francisco Giants, who had all that talent in the rotation, all the talent in the field, and just couldn't close games. It wouldn't shock me if 10 years later, the Texas Rangers in the year 2025 mirrored that Giants team. Just struggles in the eighth and the ninth innings, struggles with blown saves. I don't see any pieces there in Texas the Rangers can realistically rely on. So they're either going to have to trade for a bunch of guys, hope that young arms come up from the minor leagues and help them out, but they've got a very intriguing rotation. Both Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, former Vanderbilt teammates, in that rotation against Texas. And speaking of the Vanderbilt Commodores, Walker Buehler, who goes for Boston today, he is a former top draft pick out of Vanderbilt. Other games on the slate for this evening: Houston Astros will go up against the New York Mets. Juan Soto hit his first home run in a Mets uniform last night. It's Griffin Canning, the former UCLA right-hander, former Angels pitcher, taking the ball for the Mets, who've been already hit by injuries in their rotation. Sean Manaea, of course, out for opening day. He was the big re-signing this offseason in New York. And Spencer Arrighetti taking the mound for the Houston Astros tonight. Arrighetti, one of the top prospects in that Astros organization, kind of broke through last season, but a lot of folks pinning him as a guy who will have a huge year this year. Another National League West team to watch tonight, the San Diego Padres, off to a 2-0 start. A statement series with what they've done already at Petco Park against the Atlanta Braves, who are my pick to win in the AL East. The Braves, with such a great rotation, such great young talent around their position player side, they'll go with Spencer Schwellenbach today. A very interesting story. Schwellenbach, one of the top young pitchers in the NL East, a division that's loaded with great young talent. A converted shortstop who's very fun to watch on the mound. He's kind of the next big hope in Atlanta. And Randy Vasquez taking the ball for the San Diego Padres. They've been hit hard by injuries in their rotation as well. This will probably be a day that you might see Yu Darvish pitching out of the rotation for the Padres, but instead he opened up the season on the injured list. 3 more games to tell you about, all coming your way this evening in Major League Baseball. Chicago Cubs, they're 1-3 on the season after losing 2 in Tokyo against the Dodgers. They're taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks at Chase Field down in Phoenix. Shota Imanaga on the hill for the Cubs today, and Brandon Pfaadt, he takes the ball for the Diamondbacks after signing a 5-year, $45 million extension. The young right-hander pitching out of that D-backs rotation. He's really the number 5 starter, although things kind of messed up early in the season by Torey Lovello. He had expected Corbin Burnes to pitch either the first or the second game of the season, but he messed something up with how he set up the rotation down in spring training, wasn't really able to get things back on track. So it was Zach Gallen pitching game 1, Merrill Kelly game 2. It's Brandon Pfaadt game 3, Eduardo Rodriguez game 4, and Corbin Burnes actually won't make his debut until the 5th game of the season for the Arizona Diamondbacks after signing that 6-year, $210 million contract with Arizona earlier this year. The Los Angeles Dodgers 4-0 after Mookie Betts' late game heroics last night with a walk-off home run. They face off against the Detroit Tigers, who played the Dodgers hard each of the last 2 nights, but man, that Dodgers talent so overwhelming. Roki Sasaki takes the ball for the second time this season. He's up against Olsen for the Detroit Tigers. Reese Olsen, the starting pitcher for Scott Harris, former Giants general manager, his Tigers organization. And then the last game to tell you about this evening, it's the Seattle Mariners going up against the Oakland A's. They've split the first 2 games of the season up there in Seattle at T-Mobile Park. Osvaldo Bido taking the ball for the A's today, and Bryce Miller going, nice young right-hander for the Seattle Mariners. So that's a quick spin around Major League Baseball. When we come back, some sounds from the Giants' opening day victory, a 6-4 win over the Cincinnati Reds. Your calls as well. 415-808-KNBR is the number. Would love to hear from you, your thoughts on the opening day win, your thoughts on the lineup the Giants are using today, and what they should do with their DH spot in the order. You've got Casey Schmidt as the DH today. It was Wilmer Flores DHing on Thursday against Cincinnati. What would you do if you were Giants manager Bob Melvin? What would you do if you were Giants president of baseball operations Buster Posey? How would you handle the designated hitter spot with Gerard Encarnacion out for the next 8 weeks and poised to land on the 60-day injured list in the near future? I am Kerry Crowley. The show is Giants Warm-Up. We are rolling with you until the start of our Giants pregame show. First pitch coming your way at 1:10 this afternoon on KNBR. Here on KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
While Bob Melvin preps the men in orange and black, we'll prep you for today's ball game as our Giants warm-up continues on the Sports Leader.
We are back here on Giants Warm-Up, very first of the regular season. A privilege to be hosting this show all year long. Kerry Crowley hanging out with you, getting you set for Giants baseball. It's Justin Verlander, the right-hander, making his San Francisco Giants debut this afternoon at Great American Ballpark. 20th Major League season. The three-time Cy Young Award winner pitching behind Logan Webb. Out of this Giants rotation, he'll go up against the southpaw Nick Lodolo taking the hill for Terry Francona's squad. We've already given you the lineups, and we'll do so again later on this afternoon. Just took a spin with scores around Major League Baseball. What I want to do next is set up some interesting sound that I heard from Giants broadcaster Mike Krukow, who did a great job calling opening day with Dwayne Kuiper. Krukow, of course, didn't travel out to Cincinnati. They've got this great setup where he and Dwayne can call games remotely and allows Giants fans to listen in to Kruk and Kuip just as it always has been and should be. So, Krukow was talking about kind of the way that the Giants structured their lineup, structured their play, and really the identity that this team built during spring training, how it carried over into game one of the regular season on Thursday with a come-from-behind win, with Wilmer Flores delivering the knockout blow for the San Francisco Giants. And he was saying that a lot of this is really the byproduct of Bob Melvin feeling better in his second year as the Giants manager, having more control over what he's doing right now. And I think we all tend to look at the Giants and see an organization that's been reshaped and redeveloped by Buster Posey. Obviously, it'll be completely reshaped over the next few seasons in his image. There's only so much that you can do over the first offseason. But I think one of the really pivotal points is the synergy that exists between Melvin and Posey and how well they already get along as the manager and the president of baseball operations. So here's what Krukow had to say about Bob Melvin and his handprints being all over this Giants team.
I want to go back, and I touched on Bob Melvin's contribution to this team. This team has Bob Melvin written all over it. And one thing that I learned when I had Roger Craig is you, as a manager, you can never, ever project anything other than optimism to your team. They have to always have the belief that you believe. And with Bob Melvin, that's up and down his coaching staff. They're the most positive coaching staff that you could possibly hope for as a player. And they stayed positive through the whole game. And here's Wilmer Flores capitalizing on it. And the belief. It's so important. That's what they came out of Scottsdale with, a belief. And they're positive, and it pays off. And they get the big hit. And it's the biggest comeback in ninth inning in Giants history. I mean, it was just so freaking cool.
I could not agree more with Mike Krukow. I took 2 trips down to the desert during spring training. And this is a Giants team that if you look at its record over the last 3 seasons, what does it have to be confident about? The Giants as an organization have underperformed. They've underwhelmed. They've been disappointing to the vast majority of fans, frustrating and angering at times. But when Buster Posey was hired, they wiped the slate clean. They didn't overhaul this Major League roster. They supplemented. They brought in Willie Adamas to play shortstop. They brought in Justin Verlander to pitch out of the number 2 slot in the rotation, and they cleared the way for young players to get opportunities. Landon Roop wins a job in this rotation as the number 5 starter. Hayden Birdsong will pitch out of the bullpen. Tyler Fitzgerald, the second baseman. Casey Schmidt, Christian Koss on this roster. Luis Matos getting a start today. Elliot Ramos, of course, still a young talent in this organization. Patrick Bailey, he still qualifies a 2020 draft pick. What they did really during spring training is change their mindset. They went from a team, focused on, I think, a lot of little things, on winning the first pitch of at-bats, of focused on specific things that happen over the course of a game, to having a broader, big-picture approach and understanding that if you show up each day and you focus on the details and you prepare extremely well and you play extremely hard and you're fundamentally sound, good things will happen. And so I think they went from last year, where this over-management of the roster, where you've got the 24th, 25th, and 26th guys in the roster constantly fluctuating, guys going up and down I-80 from AAA Sacramento to San Francisco, new guy in the clubhouse on a daily basis, some being claimed off waivers and being sent to AAA or debuting in the big league clubhouse and being slotted into the lineup right away, to a team that values stability and continuity. That's what Buster Posey has preached from the start of his tenure, said the Giants are in a memory-making business, and I think that Bob Melvin is fully bought in, fully aligned with that vision. He was Farhan Zaidi's hire. They got along from their days in the Oakland A's organization together. But I think that if you were to ask Bob Melvin who he relates to more in the game of baseball, the answer would unequivocally be Buster Posey. And I think that Buster and Melvin's relationship sets the tone for this organization. It set the tone down in Scottsdale. It's why you saw a 21-6 record from spring training. Now, I've said this several times over the last week. I don't put a whole lot of stock in spring training records. I don't believe that what a team does in Cactus League play is in any way indicative of how a team will perform during the regular season. But what I do put a lot of stock in is the characters and the traits that the Giants developed down there in Scottsdale. This is a team that competed until the end of March baseball games. This is a team that was bought in on the fundamentals, on preparation for split squad games against the Cleveland Guardians and the San Diego Padres. And when you focus on that level of detail, when you buy in March, it's going to carry over to April. And one of the players whose mission is responsible for carrying out the vision that Buster Posey and Bob Melvin set for the organization is Willy Adamas. And on Thursday, Adamas had a terrible ball game. Objectively speaking, 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts, and a misplay on a grounder up the middle, where he fielded the ball but couldn't quite decide if he wanted to go to second base or first base and didn't get an out when his pitcher rolled a ground ball with runners on first and second, force-out situation. It was bad. You can't have that. But nevertheless, Willy Adamas, late in the ball game, was on the front step of the dugout when Wilmer Flores came up and hit the go-ahead home run. And he was the first guy out of the dugout celebrating. Because Willy Adamas, despite the fact that he had a terrible ball game, despite the fact that he put the team in a bad position, didn't lose hope in the other guys. He was emanating confidence. He never lost belief. He knew that if Flores came up with the opportunity to do some damage, the Giants would be in a good position. And so when Flores hit that home run, it struck me that Adamas and Jung-Hoo Lee and Elliot Ramos were 3 of the first guys out of the dugout. And it struck Mike Krukow, too. Here's what he had to say about Adamas.
It means everything. It means that it isn't all about you. It's about the team and about the emotion of the moment. And the thing that we've discovered about Willy Adamas very early on in spring training is that there ain't a phony body and a bone in his body. This guy loves baseball. He loves winning environment. He loves guys that come to play for each other every day. And I mean, it's like it's one game, but it's so significant because they carried on what we saw from them all spring long. And when you have your leaders like Chapman and Verlander and Adamas and Yastrzemski, and these guys are like little kids when something happens that, you know, nobody's too cool to just completely jump up out of a dugout, go out in front of the dugout and look like an idiot. I mean, that's fun. And that you can't manufacture that. You can't. That's just honest right there. And I loved it. We all loved it. And you know what? As fans, we're watching this. We go right into the dugout with them, and we're jumping around too. Kipe and I were high-fiving each other on TV. He was in Cincinnati. I was in San Francisco. We're slapping the TV. It was way cool.
I couldn't agree more with Krukow when he says you can't manufacture that. Like, Willy Adamas can't fake the excitement. You can't fake the intensity that Jung-Hoo Lee plays the game with, that Matt Chapman plays the game with. And when you have a ton of guys who are aligned and have the same vision, have the same sense of, okay, you're down in the 8th inning, what are you going to do about it? And they all believe over the course of 162 games, it's going to add a few wins. Now, all sorts of analytics folks will tell me, they'll all fight back and they'll say, no, what you really need is great players. If you're going to win 90 games, you need the best players in baseball. Well, there's a lot of truth in that. The best rosters almost always produce the most wins. But in baseball, more than any other sport, more than in the NFL, NBA, NHL, soccer, crazy things happen over 162 games. Teams that are expected to perform extremely well because of their top-line talent, they sometimes fall apart. Teams that are overlooked, teams that don't quite have the talent that measures up with the best in baseball, They jive, they gel, and all of a sudden, they're in a race. Magical things happen. It's why we tune into baseball over the course of 162 games. It's why you watch from March 27th all the way to September 29th. Because when this stuff happens, you want to be a part of it. You want to see for your own eyes how a team comes together. The body language of certain players. Who's having fun? And on day one of the regular season, the Giants had a ton of fun. It didn't look that way early when Logan Webb gave up the first inning run and the Giants were striking out 8 times in 3 innings against Hunter Green. But by the end of the ball game, it looked much like it did when the Giants were down in spring training, which was 7, 8, 9 different players contributing, 7, 8, 9 different players having a hand in the outcome, and the outcome ultimately turning into a positive one because so many guys were aligned and so many guys felt the same way, even when the team was down. And I look at the 2022, 2023, 2024 Giants as teams that never had a semblance of synergy, never had all 26 players pulling in the same direction. Those teams would get down, and you would feel like it was a lost cause. Now, there were junctures of 23 and 24, May and June specifically in each of those seasons, where there were days where the Giants would come out and they'd pull together a come-from-behind win, and they'd give you some hope, they'd give you some optimism. But over the aggregate, over 162, more often than not, they were relying on 1 or 2 players having a huge day, breaking through. And that wasn't really the case on Thursday. And that's not really the case for the best teams in baseball. You need more than 1 or 2 superstars. You need more than 1 or 2 players to carry you on a daily basis. The Giants got by on Thursday without Willy Adamas having a great game because 6, 7, 8 other guys contributed when it mattered most. Jung-Hoo Lee had 2 important walks that set the stage for rallies. Elliot Ramos struck out 3 times, but the one at bat where he didn't, he hit a 2-run homer. Patrick Bailey didn't have a great day at the plate, but when the Giants needed a hit, he delivered. Matt Chapman struck out a few times, but you know what? Jung-Hoo Lee on first base in the 9th inning, he plops one through the hole on the right side of the infield and sends Lee over to third base. And then Flores, who had a terrible 2024, who had a lot of fans give up on him, who had some analysts, including myself, questioning whether the Giants should keep him over the course of the offseason. He comes up and delivers the biggest at-bat of the game. And it was all the result of a pitching staff that kept the Giants in the game. It was Logan Webb limiting the damage over 5 innings, giving up, 9 hits, 3 walks, a preposterous number of base runners, and still, he allowed just 3 runs. It was Randy Rodriguez with a quiet 6th, Eric Miller handling the 7th, Tyler Rogers doing his job in the 8th, all setting up some margin for error for Ryan Walker in the 9th. Because there will be days where your closer doesn't have it. Ryan Walker didn't on the first day of the regular season, and it didn't matter because 6, 7, 8 other guys made the important contributions for a team win. This 2025 Giants squad won't be defined by 1 or 2 or 3 players. It will be defined by getting contributions from 5, 6, or 7 different guys on the games that they do win. Now, will they win 85? Will they win 90? I have no idea. But based on spring training, more so than what I saw on Thursday, but based on spring training, I have a belief that you're going to see more players contributing this season than you did over each of the previous 3. I think the vision that Posey and Melvin have laid out together is one that's sticking in the clubhouse. I think that man who was 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts on Thursday and a defensive miscue, Willy Adamas, he plays a role in helping the Giants see that vision come to fruition as well. I'm Kerry Crowley. The show is Giants Warm-Up. When we come back, we'll give you the lineups one more time. We'll get you set for Giants baseball, get you closer to first pitch at 1:10 Pacific time. Coming your way from Cincinnati, Justin Verlander on the mound. You're listening to Giants Warm-Up on KNBR, the sports leader.
It's almost time for hot dogs, peanuts, cold beers, and orange and black baseball. Our Giants warm-up rolls on the sports leader.
We are back here on Giants Warm-Up. Kerry Crowley getting you set for Giants baseball this afternoon. Coming your way from Great American Ballpark 70 minutes from this moment. Justin Verlander on the mound for San Francisco. Nick Lodolo, the left-hander, taking the ball for Terry Francona and the Cincinnati Reds. Piece of news just came across the wire, and relatively surprising news at that. The Giants say that David Villar, who was designated for assignment last week. Well, he cleared waivers and was outrighted to AAA Sacramento, which means that the Giants will keep VR in the organization. This is a team that already has a lot of infield depth. You've got a couple of right-handers on this roster right now who are, in theory, backups, and Casey Schmidt, who's getting the call today, is the DH, and Christian Koss, who's a true backup utility infielder for the San Francisco Giants. But with Gerard Encarnacion undergoing finger surgery yesterday and expected to miss at least the next 8 weeks, probably ticketed for the 60-day injured list, the Giants keep a powerful right-handed bat inside the organization. And while VR hasn't shown that he can be productive at the major league level over the long stretch of time and hasn't proved that he can hit consistently, especially off-speed pitches, you send him down to AAA Sacramento, you get him in a groove as a DH, and all of a sudden, if you deal with some injuries, if Flores or Schmidt or Koss goes down, VR could find his way back to this 40-man roster relatively quickly, and I think could do so because his power is valuable. I think that, you look at other organizations, say the Rockies, the White Sox, the Angels, and you wonder why they missed out on the opportunity to pick up VR, and it's possible that scouts just see someone who won't ever hit breaking balls, but I've always believed in David VR and think that if given another opportunity, the Giants might be able to catch lightning in a bottle. Again, not something you want to think about too early in the season. You want to go with your ultimate 26-man roster the Giants have set. You want to rely on your 40-man roster for depth, but keeping VR in the organization, in my opinion, a plus because, look, he's not going to block anyone down at AAA Sacramento. He's not going to prevent anyone from getting at bats. At the most, he'll be a DH, first base, third base type. Giants will be able to work him in against left-handed pitching down in AAA Sacramento and could call him up, add him back to the 40-man roster if needed at any point. And speaking of powerful right-handed hitters, Wilmer Flores, he hit the game-winning go-ahead home run on Thursday for the San Francisco Giants. A 6-4 win on opening day over the Cincinnati Reds. The Giants' first ninth-inning comeback on opening day since 1968 against the New York Mets. How about that for some Giants history? Wilmer Flores joined Adam Copeland and Derek Papa on dirty work after the big home run on Thursday, and he broke down the ninth-inning home run that he hit. Here's what Flores had to say for himself.
Honestly, there was a man on third base, and second baseman was pulling me up the middle, and it was first and third, and I saw the hole right there. I said, if it's a fastball, if I'm late, the worst that can happen, it's a base hit. If it's a slider, he's just doing me a favor. And, he hung one right down the middle, and it went out.
Hung one right down the middle. It went out, and it wasn't quite Buster Posey off Matt Latos in 2012 when the Giants ultimately won that 5-game NLDS set against the Cincinnati Reds with the epic home run at Great American Ballpark that gave the Giants the huge lead that afternoon. But man, it was reminiscent of that home run where you knew right off the bat it was headed to the left field bleachers. You knew right off the bat the Giants were extending an opportunity to win that ball game, and Wilmer Flores coming through. And speaking of Buster Posey, Flores, a former teammate of Posey, he now runs the organization. I think that some general managers, some president of baseball operations in the position that Posey was in this offseason maybe would have gotten rid of Flores, maybe would have found a way to trade him, maybe would have said, look, this is someone who could be blocking some of the development inside our organization. We don't necessarily need another veteran right-handed hitter, particularly after the 2024 season that Flores had, where he didn't perform well, where the knee was banged up, where he underwent surgery and missed the second half of the year after being placed on the injured list. But Posey was Flores' teammate. He knows the value of those tough late-game at-bats. He knows the value of what Wilmer Flores can provide. And also, Posey provided a lot of that himself. He was a tough out in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. It was one of the things that made him such a great hitter, a 300 career hitter over the course of his major league career. And he gave the team a message this spring and on opening day about how to fight at the plate, about how to stay alive. Here's what Flores said about the message that Posey offered up Flores and his teammates.
Yeah, I'll definitely take my deep breath. Every time I'm at the plate, it doesn't matter what the situation is. Trusting the process. Obviously, I've been playing for a little bit now, and things that you learn while playing is that you got to slow the game down and let it come to you. Don't try to make things happen. That's when you make mistakes. Just let the ball come to you, and more importantly, it's swinging at your pitch, because when we try to do a lot, we go out of the strike zone, and You don't want that.
Yeah, so you don't want that, and it was something the Giants did a little bit of on Thursday. If there was one downside to Thursday's performance against the Cincinnati Reds, the Giants struck out 17 times. An unacceptable total in a game where you make 27 outs. The Giants failed to make contact in the early innings against Hunter Green, who racked up 8 strikeouts in the first 3 innings, and things weren't a whole lot better against Scott Barlow out of the bullpen, against Emilio Pagan out of the bullpen. Pagan looked great. There have been times through his career where he's really struggled, but Pagan, he had that fastball working in the 7th on Thursday afternoon. Tony Santillan also took advantage of the Giants, and then Ian Jabot takes them out in the 9th inning, the non-roster invitee to spring training for the Cincinnati Reds. Of course, Alexis Diaz on the injured list to open the season, one of the great young closers across Major League Baseball, a 2023 All-Star. He's on the IL, so the Giants face Ian Jabot in the 9th inning, and he takes advantage of that. Terry Francona was second-guessed about that decision. I think he told local reporters either yesterday or earlier today that, look, if you manage the game, if you think like a fan, you're going to manage the game like a fan. You can't think like a fan. I thought that was interesting from the Hall of Fame manager, or the future Hall of Fame manager, who's back in the dugout this season with the Cincinnati Reds. So Giants pregame coming your way shortly. Our Giants warm-up show coming to an end here this afternoon. But before we officially break things down and send things over to this date in Giants history, do want to give you the lineup that Bob Melvin's sending forth one more time in case you're just tuning in case you just missed it. First pitch about 63 minutes away from Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. Here's how the Giants will line things up against the left-hander Nick Lodolo. It'll be Elliot Ramos hitting out of the leadoff spot. Homered, of course, against Hunter Green on Thursday. 2 runs batted in with that home run. Elliot Ramos playing left field and batting leadoff. Willie Adamas looking for his first hit as a San Francisco Giant. He'll play shortstop today for the Giants. Jung-Hoo Lee batting third and playing center field. Matt Chapman, the cleanup man, and playing third base. Wilmer Flores back in the lineup and on the field today. He'll play first base and bat fifth. Luis Matos' season debut out there in right field. He's the 6th hitter for Bob Melvin's team. Patrick Bailey, the switch hitting catcher, he'll hit right-handed today against Nick Lodolo and bat in the 7th spot in the order. Casey Schmidt gets the call as the designated hitter. He'll hit 8th, and Tyler Fitzgerald still looking to get things going after a very slow spring training. A few strikeouts on Thursday afternoon. He bats 9th and plays second base. On the other side, for the Cincinnati Reds, it's TJ Friedl, the leadoff hitter for Cincinnati. Tough, pesky guy at the top of that Reds lineup. It's Matt McClain, the second baseman, batting second. He went 0 for 5 with a couple of strikeouts in Thursday's ball game, but of course hit that long ball to the outfield wall against Ryan Walker that put a scare in just about everyone. Prompted Dwayne Kuiper to say, what would opening day be without a little bit of Giants torture? Ellie De La Cruz, the superstar shortstop, he bats third for Terry Francona's team. Gavin Lux, former Dodger, gets the call in the cleanup spot, and he'll play left field this afternoon. How about that? Lux out in left field after a career infielder with the Dodgers. He did, I guess, cameo in center field a bit down in L.A., but they moved him out to left field. He's closer to home. I believe Lux is a Wisconsin kid, was playing out in Southern California, drafted out of high school, was committed to Arizona State originally, but went straight to the pros coming out of high school. Of course, started his career in L.A. and now moved to Cincinnati over the course of the winter. Heimer Candelario, the designated hitter, he'll bat fifth for the Reds. Christian Encarnacion Strand, a Bay Area guy, batting sixth and playing first base. Santiago Espinal over at third base today, making his season debut for the Reds. He'll bat seventh. Jake Fraley in right field for Cincinnati. He'll hit eighth. And Jose Trevino, the catcher, will bat ninth. Giants pregame show on the way very soon. We'll have our Diamond Notes. We'll have Around the Park with Dave Fleming. We'll have so much more conversation with John Miller as well. Up next, it's This Date in Giants History. You're listening to KNBR 104.5, 680, the sports leader.
KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.